The singer Adele has taken a lot of flack recently for two reasons. First up, she lost around 7 stone in weight and looks amazing on it, but this angered the body positive crowd. The term body positive usually just refers to fat acceptance, and although there are a minority of people whom have genuine medical conditions meaning they can't lose weight, the vast majority of the morbidly obese suffer from a condition whereby they keep getting their hand, putting it into food, and then ramming that food into their face. And Adele was sort of their role model, so they're angry that she doesn't want to die of heart disease in her mid-40s. And then last weekend, on what would have been the Notting Hill Carnival, Adele was pictured with her hair in Bantu knots wearing a Jamaican flag bikini, and she's been accused of racism and cultural appropriation. On Twitter, one user wrote that white girls shouldn't be stealing black women's hair. But what someone pays a hairdresser to do to their barnet is their business, and I'm guessing that the bikini Adele was wearing was hers, so it's her hair and her clothing. But cultural appropriation suggests that if you use part of another person's culture, you are in fact stealing from that culture. And it's bollocks. When the Marvel film Black Panther, played by the late Chadwick Boseman, was released, some people were up in arms, saying that any non-black child who dressed up as Black Panther was guilty of cultural appropriation and racism. Now for me, any kid that has Black Panther as their favourite superhero, that should be celebrated, because it means the racism hasn't set in yet. It hasn't been drummed into them. But not only that, you cannot steal from the culture of Wakanda because the country doesn't fucking exist. And then last night, I was watching a video on YouTube. In the USA, a black woman went into a tea shop which she believed to be a black business, but it was run by people of Chinese origin. And she started screaming at them that they were racist, stealing money from black businesses and guilty of cultural appropriation. And when a man came to intervene, who was also black, she called him an effing N-word. How thick do you have to be to walk into a business and accuse Asian people selling tea of cultural appropriation? Where does she think tea comes from? In fact, if you're watching, love, here's a clue. It isn't Harlem. Once again, I believe the notion of cultural appropriation is bullshit. All cultures borrow from one another. That's how the world works. And I consider myself very lucky that I've got friends who are all different cultures, colours and religions. That diversity is what makes life interesting. But imagine what would happen if white people started playing the cultural appropriation card. Just to clarify, I'm referring to anyone with European ancestry, whether they be European, British, American, Australian, whatever. Anyone who's roughly the same colour as me. If we, as it were, started saying people of other races couldn't use things invented by white folks. As we know, there are thousands of diseases which can be cured with a course of antibiotics. However, they were invented by a white bloke. So, sadly for the people of Africa who are dropping dead in their thousands, you're going to have to go back to relying on a witch doctor. Now, some people may have found what I just said offensive, and you may wish to complain, but if you're not white, then I don't want you stealing from my culture. So you can't complain using a computer, a tablet, a mobile phone, the internet, the World Wide Web, or a landline, because they're all white inventions. It's utter wank, isn't it? And anyone who wants to travel anywhere, please be aware that the petrol engine, the diesel engine, the two-stroke engine, the jet engine, the rocket, the gas turbine, cars, motorcycles, trains, helicopters, aeroplanes, rockets, and even the humble push bike, they're all white inventions as well. And if you just want to sit at home, watching the TV or listening to the radio, well, if you're not the same colour as me, stop stealing from my culture. It's not like you can even read a book, because the printing press, my lot came up with that as well. And once the sun goes down, it's going to be dark, because the electric light bulb was invented by Thomas Edison. No sane person would go along with any of this. The idea that people can be excluded from using something which we all take for granted based on the colour of their skin. That's what cultural appropriation is. It's racism. If you judge someone based solely on their skin colour, whether you be black, white, yellow, brown or fucking purple, you're a bigot and a racist. So now we're all warmed up, let's talk about slavery. There seems to be this notion at the moment that slavery was invented by some white chaps running around Africa with oversized butterfly nets. But nothing's further from the truth. The Africans who were transported to the British Empire, the French Empire and the Americas, who must have gone through life which would have seemed like hell on earth, were sold by other Africans. Now that doesn't make it right, but it puts it in context, because slavery has gone on for as long as there have been humans. The Arabs used to enslave the Europeans, the Egyptians enslaved the Jews, and here in Britain, slaves were taken by the Romans, the Angles, the Saxons, the Vikings and the Normans. So I don't think any one racial group can be held responsible for slavery. The abolition of slavery, though, that's a different story. The French abolished slavery in the 1790s and the British followed suit in the early 1800s. And the politicians that got this through their respective parliaments were white men. And because we now live in a society where there are so many fucktards who will take credit for something that happened hundreds of years ago based on nothing than the colour of their skin, I'd like to say when it comes to the abolition of slavery, you're welcome. Of course I'm not taking any credit for it, that would be ridiculous. But cultural appropriation is ridiculous. I mean, next time England get absolutely annihilated by India at the cricket, should I start complaining that cricket's an English game so India shouldn't be allowed to play it? Of course I fucking won't. The Indians win because they're bloody good at it. And by the same token, next time I sit down for a biryani, I'm not expecting my Indian friends to call me up and say you can't eat that because it's stealing from us. Wouldn't it be a lot simpler if rather than separating and segregating ourselves into black, brown, yellow, white, whatever, we all just settled on the human race? Thanks for watching.